So, Syria, the cradle of civilizations. It means the very beginning of the civilizations, and in the Syriac language it means the land of the sun. Syria is a country in Western Asia bordering Lebanon and the Mediterranean Sea to the west, Turkey to the north, Iraq to the east, Jordan to the south, and Palestine to the southwest. Some of you guys know Palestine as Israel, but we know it as Palestine. Syria's capital and largest city is Damascus, which is the first inhabited city in human history. The first ever school in human history was found in Syria, where the great late Syrian scientist Ibn al-Nafis discovered the circulatory system. The very first alphabet was presented 7,005 years before Christ, like the ABC of English. Do you eat olives? The very first olive tree was planted in Syria, just like I mentioned a couple of days ago. Bread that we all need, the first ever wheat field, was also planted in Syria and harvested also there. The original language of Syrians is actually the Syriac language, which is a branch from the Aramaic language that Jesus Christ himself spoke. Preaching for Christianity started in Syria, where John the Baptist preached Christianity there, who lived and died in Syria, and his grave is still there till this day in our country. Music was found in Syria. The oldest musical note was made of clay 1,400 years before Christ. Contained 4 verses of the Hori language, which was dedicated for one of the gods at that time. Just like right now, we have Noor Darwish, our great Syrian musician. Wave your hand, Noor. Wave your hand. That's my boy. That's my boy. You're gonna do your job in just a minute, alright? You're gonna do your job, and everybody's gonna watch you. And by the way, Noor has the greatest instrument, and it was also found in Syria. It's called oud, and it's the father of a lot of instruments, a lot of music instruments, like the guitar and a lot of others. And you're gonna see him playing it in just a few minutes. Syria is a country of fertile plains, high mountains, and deserts. Syria is a home to diverse ethnic and religious groups, including Syrian Arabs, Assyrians, Kurds, Greeks, Turks, Armenians, Mandeans, and Circassians. Religious groups including Sunni Muslims, Alawites, Christian, Jews, Shiite Muslims, Mandeans, Yazidis, and Jews. Sunni Arabs make the largest religious group in Syria, which I am one of them. While Syria includes the sites of several ancient kingdoms and empires, including the Ablan civilization, which is 3,000 years before Christ. It means 5,000 years before now. Aleppo and the capital Damascus are 2 of the oldest inhabited cities in human history. We Syrians had never ever been displaced for 8,000 years. Until the war of 2011, we had never ever been displaced. 8,000 years. Fast forward to the last century, when a lot of military coups took place in Syria. After we had our independence from France, a lot of new presidents knocked out each other, until someone called Hafiz al-Assad killed his own friend Salah Jadid to be the ultimate, the undisputed president of Syria. And that was back in 1970. Hafiz al-Assad was a total criminal. He killed thousands of innocents just because they refused his rule. He committed a huge and famous massacre in my own city, Hama, back in 1982. Over 40,000 people were killed, including members of my family and relatives. So he kept ruling the country for 30 years with an iron fist until the year 2000, when he died due to cancer. And his son, the biggest criminal our Syrian history has ever seen, Bashar al-Assad, inherited his father's kingdom, despite the fact that Syria is a republic, not a kingdom. But he inherited because he can. I can tell that a lot of people from you guys started to be bored, but believe me, this is very important. Now let's jump into the time before the war. Syria in 2010, just 1 year before the war, was exporting food, was exporting clothes, oil, and a lot of other manufacturing stocks. And that was because of the hard-working Syrian people, not because of Bashar al-Assad and his government. Syrians are hard-working people always. In Syria before the war, we had jobs, we had education, and we had professions for people who didn't want to continue their study. We had healthcare, we had the most amazing fresh air in the world. We had tourism, not terrorism. None of Syrians thought about leaving Syria for an instant. None. We hospitalized 1 million Iraqis back when the United States invaded Iraq in 2003. We hospitalized Lebanese back when Lebanon had a war with Israel in 2006. We hospitalized them in our homes. We didn't even install any tents for them. But with all these privileges and blessings, deep inside, we were totally oppressed by our dictator president al-Assad and his father before him, Hafiz al-Assad, for 40 years. We were dreaming about having a democratic land where we can say or criticize whoever we want or be whatever we want. Do you know that if there was a Syrian scientist under al-Assad's rule, like he invents or discovers something, he would immediately be arrested for treason? He's a traitor, and he doesn't even know why. Just inventing or discovering stuff, a scientist. So we had enough after 40 years of dictatorship, and we revolutionized examining with a thing called the Arab Spring in the Middle East, in which every country in the Middle East revolutionized peacefully against their dictator presidents. So in 2011, we started peacefully protesting day in and day out. We want democracy, we want freedom, day in and day out, in the streets peacefully without any weapons. Then Bashar al-Assad did not like the way we showed him disobedience, because he treated us like slaves. How dare them showing me disobedience and say that we want freedom? I'm gonna kill them. So he started to kill us while we were protesting. He started to kill small children, and he started to imprison guys and youth like me. Now the last chapter, which is how is it for us during the war right now, and we'll be finished from the video. After al-Assad started to kill us, we couldn't take it no more. We started to have weapons to fight back against him, against his army that he recruited to protect his chair. So some groups in his army did not stand watching the killing of their own Syrian people, and they split it up from his army to create the Free Syrian Army groups. But unfortunately, these groups were not united because a lot of countries started to back each group alone. So each group from the Free Syrian Army was controlling an area in Syria. Then Bashar al-Assad started to be defeated when he lost control on most of the Syrian parts. And only then came Iran and Russia, Vladimir Putin, to protect him because they have a lot of interests in the region there in Syria. But a lot of countries are participating in this war, whether economically or with their military. And eventually we, the youth Syrian people, realized that everybody wants to kill us. Iran, Russia, the United States, everybody wants Bashar al-Assad to stay in power. We realized that everybody wants to destroy our country, and everyone is a liar and a hypocrite. All are liars. The United Nations, all the leaders that claimed that they want to help the Syrian people, liars. Ladies and gentlemen, the result of the Syrian war, by far, 1 million innocents are killed under Russia and Assad's bombing. 800,000 Syrians are imprisoned, getting tortured to death. and no help for them. 15 million Syrians are displaced and refugees all across the world, and I am one of them. Hi. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not refugees because we want food, because we want money, because we want work. No. We are refugees of war. We only need safety because we had everything in Syria. 8,000 years we did not leave our land, but this time the war was really, really bigger than us.